Hello boys and girls, this is actually my first YouTube video, but I would say let's not waste any time with an introduction. That's not what you came here for. You wanna see some poker gameplay, you wanna learn something, so let's just do that. Let's go. I'm gonna try to explain as much as I can. Playing some NL50 Russian cash. Definitely some room for exploits on these stakes. So let's see what we can do in terms of that. Okay, here we have our first decision. I guess this hand can 3-bet or call. Once the price we're getting is lower, like the open size is small, the EV of call usually goes up, or at least it's less necessary to 3-bet. This turn is really good for villain's range. Obviously he will have a lot of checkbacks that are ace highs, especially if he snap checks back. So we're gonna check again, because there's a lot of ace high we lose to. At this point we very often have the best hand, so we should size at least 75. The question is, do we want to overbet? I think we can do that for how capped people are actually here in this spot. Okay, interesting line from our opponent. Okay, this can definitely open. I mean, I don't want to really snap fold these combos. I want to definitely open wider from button, but maybe this is a tiny bit too wide. It's like a back and forth of things, kind of, because people will overfold, especially in this fast fold format. But at the same time, we're playing a low stake on GG Poker, so the rake will be very high. Against 2x we have to call a lot, but I think this is too wide again, mainly because of the rake. On higher stakes this would be definitely a call, and on other sides okay, we can open queen 9 off, snap fold. This is I'm not gonna take notes now because I wanna take all my time for explaining. But this would be a case where we should take a note that our opponent has the autofold button activated. That means we can exploit him by opening any two cards from the small blind, basically. We get cold called by this guy who is not full stack, so we can assume he's a recreational player, and small blind flats are often a sign for the same thing, so we might be up against two recreationals. We start with a check. There's not much we can do and we have to fold. Yes, we have a gut shot, but there are so many draws that dominate us, and we have this data point against this guy that he bet multi-way into two players, which is usually a pretty strong range, so we don't want to mess with that. So far everything pretty straightforward. This combo could 3-bet, I guess, but again, high rake. People might be very tired from UTG, so gonna avoid it. I don't really see the upside for it. These combos can open, can fold, it's a bit whatever, but thinking that people, yeah, snap fold, like in these fast fold formats, people just snap fold a lot, they under 3-bet a bit. So I am definitely a big fan of opening a bit wider here. This guy limps. Okay, we ISO him. Pretty straightforward. And now we kinda have the goal to get his whole stack, that's for sure. And the board is kinda dynamic, and so we can start with a big bet. Against recreationals, we're trying to play our hand and not our range as much as possible, basically. Okay. This hand could 3-bet, doesn't have to, but it could. I just prefer to be a bit more polar, then I have an easier decision against a 4-bet and aces. I think we're gonna open that. Another guy who has the snap fold activated. Yeah, big advice for all the people watching this. Take a note and destroy them. It's very, very easy to do. Yeah, after seeing all this, is this too loose? I don't think so actually. I think actually this is fine. I think at NL50 this is really fine. It's quite a bit out of line, but I think it has to be fine. This is an easy fold. Okay, I'm automatically staying multi-way, that's interesting. Limp from our Chinese friend. Knife 2017. What we have to keep in mind here that his range will be very wide, but ours as well, as we will have any 2 cards except the decent ones, so I have to be a bit careful. Now he overbets. This is probably very strong, and I mean we have trash, so nothing to think about here. What's the size here? Normally would be like 10, then we add some. This looks decent. These textures, you can do many things against fish. I'm not sure if he's a fish actually. I will just do the simplest, take the easiest, most simplified approach, just betting a lot. That's another thing, another piece of advice, not overcomplicating things is usually a good idea, especially in spots where the EV doesn't change much. Probably time to open after what we've seen. I think it is a fold in GTO land, but it might be close. Yeah, here we defend. Wow. Okay, we face a 3-bet and a cold 4-bet, so we're out of there. Half pot, interesting size here. We're gonna call. Never folding a pair here. Still not folding, but it's a little bit dicey because on the river if we make a straight, it's often gonna be a straight that still loses to either a flush that completed or a better straight that completed. So we're not like super happy, especially against this size. I don't think he should overbet much out of position on such a dynamic texture, because so many rivers will put him in a bad spot. I think I have to call, but I'm really not happy about this. And now I think here we can go a bit into mind game territory, but I think with the board pairing and 2 flush draws missing, he doesn't have a high incentive to bluff much. At least that's what I expect from the average player. Now he goes half pot. I mean, there are a lot of draws that miss, but this just feels underbluffed to me, kind of. But it's close. What's this guy about? I'm gonna fold. I expect people to underbluff a bit in general on these stakes, so yeah. Very tempting here, I think, with all the stuff missing, to be very stationary. But I think if the player is somewhat reasonable, it's gonna work a bit the other way around, and he might heavily underbluff. We can definitely overbluff the turn probe line against a lot of these players, but ace high with not much going on. Oh, I missed that we have a gut shot. I'm an idiot. This would have been an amazing bluff, actually. So my bad. And this is kind of annoying, but I still think we can bet. I think people will undervalue raise this spot a bit, so not sure if he will like raise me here with ace 10, ace 9 and stuff. Yeah, this is the perfect example. So I kinda get paid a lot from behind, like a lot, but somewhat decent frequency, and at the same time I lose at the minimum against these type of hands, because if I block bet he might raise, but against 75 people are just massively under value raising. I'm gonna 3-bet here. Against this size, this is like easiest fold ever. On these textures you can also do many things. Yeah. Betting 1/3, high frequency, can't be bad. Again, simplifying as much as possible. Seems fine to me. But if you look at these spots in Pio Solver, they're actually played pretty differently. Fold. Check 10 off. I think we can open. Same thing again. Going a bit wide. Probably very good here. As you guys can see, we're getting a lot of folds. 10-7 seems a bit too loose though. This is interesting board. Again, we can do many things. Especially against the small blind, who will be a bit stronger. There could be a point for having a check-back range, and then having some open-enders in the check-back range is probably a good idea. Now this card hits our range amazingly well. We're gonna open wide, yeah, and so we're gonna represent that ace now and bluff him. Okay. Okay, these textures, again, a lot of options. I really like high frequency. See bet, this turn is pretty bad for us. But we have decent bluffing hand. I think using only 1/3 as a size on this turn is good. Because if we use a bigger size, we get to the point where we can only bet trips and better, and that's not what we want in a wide range spot like this one. So by sizing down, we can actually value bet much wider and keep betting ace-x and put him in a tougher spot. Okay, we went for a small bet here as well. We check back turn. And now he bets tiny. We have to call pretty wide against this. Against two big blind here. Oof, I think we can fold, but it's close. We have the queen of diamonds, which kind of sucks because it blocks his bluffs. But I'm a bit afraid, especially that the Chinese gentleman, he might be a recreational player and he might value bet an ace. So I'm gonna call. Yeah. Kinda close. Kinda close. I have a feeling that on these stakes the small size might not be bluffed as much as it's supposed to be. And that people might have this tendency of putting all their bluffs into 75. That's a thing I've seen from coaching people, etc. That happens a lot. Yeah, usual thing, kinda zero EV, could open, could fold, gonna open. And it seems to work really well, so. Gonna do the same thing here, being really loose. This is a bit too loose. Same thing here. This texture is terrible for our range. We can check back at very high frequency. This hand though, I think doesn't mind betting. I'm gonna use a small size because there's so much going on here. Turn's gonna shift equities a lot, and we get raised. Like one of the reasons I like betting with this hand is that against check raise we have an easy fold. And if we think about our range here from UTG, this is getting like, it's already one of our low showdown value hands. So there's a lot of better stuff we can check back. Jack for suited can definitely 3-bet here, can do both, but probably also in this case like 3-betting high frequency here is probably really good. Seems to be a reg. Never mind, he's not, or he has some weird exploits going on, because donking on this texture is not a thing. But yeah, can't do anything with this hand. Gonna 3-bet here. Which size? BBB we're a bit more polar, so we use a bigger size than usual. That's why we use 10 BB against 3 BB. And against 2.5, I think this is a decent size. Then this texture is pretty good for our range. And we can bet at super high frequency for very small size. Against two big blinds, we should consider having a cold calling range on the button. And I'm gonna do so, even though the rake is high, it's probably still fine. Now pocket queens is pretty intuitive check back. Against block bet we have an easy call. Against 75 we're gonna think about it. Okay, we have to think about it. Is this 75? Kinda seems like a bit off size wise. I think these textures are pretty hard to float wide on the flop. And we have a lot of ace-x as well in this line, or like 7x, 8x, who at least have better blocking properties. Pocket queen just blocks like his few light floats, like that's so confusing. Like king queen, for example. So I think it's fine to fold there, especially if we expect the pool to underbluff a bit here. This size is not a thing, and his stack size is not full, so he might be recreational. Yeah, and once people kind of fuck up the size, we have to call much wider, so I think this becomes a pretty clear call. I obviously have no idea about his range. Same thing here against 2BB, doing some cold calling. That's the only size I'm gonna do cold calling against, and only on the button. And what does this hand wanna do here? I think we're gonna stab actually. And then on a lot of turns we're gonna turn it into a bluff. We're gonna, like, especially if we pick up equity. Like these cold call versus tight early range spots are very specific. I'm gonna open smaller here because this guy is short. I don't wanna give him a good price for shoving. Here we're multi-way. Many things we can do. I think this hand really wants a big bet. And like, it being multi-way, I'm gonna give them a lot of credit if they like check raise me here, for example. It could get into fold territory already. Yeah, especially because we don't really have additional equity. We have the diamond, but yeah, kinda main advice here, be careful multi-way. People are usually very, very strong. Queen 6 off is fold. This is interesting. Button UTG with pocket jacks. In this format, I'm gonna be a real coward here and just fold. If we assume that people 3-bet a bit too strong there, this is something I would have to look up. I think at higher stakes you could definitely cold 4-bet this, but not sure here because this is one of the most tight dynamics possible, and we're gonna be out of position post flop, so might still be a cold 4-bet. I'm not sure. This is an interesting one to potentially look up. 3-bet ranges from big blind are usually too strong, so easy fold. Yeah, again a texture where you could do a lot of stuff with different sizes. I'm gonna be a bit exploit mode here, play my hand and already size up on flop. Because I don't think people like bluff check raise enough here. So I have to build the pot as fast as possible. I don't think this card actually changes that much, so we can overbet, and here we 3-bet pocket kings. Oh wow, that's kind of interesting. And I think, are we shoving or are we betting 75? We're blocking his nuts very hard. Would he raise a straight on the flop? Probably yes. We're gonna probably have shove and this size. So I'm gonna use this size with pocket tens specifically. Hoping to get called by a queen. Yeah, okay. It worked out pretty well. If I didn't make quads on the river, the question is, does it make a difference? It probably does, because it makes two pair less likely, right, at this point. So we're blocking him very hard from having boats, and I expect straights to just check raise flop. So it was all about getting value from Queen X, and like half pot has this additional advantage that it can sometimes, if players are very aggressive, it can induce something. It looks very capped. It looks a bit like I'm betting. Like again, gonna open a bit wide here. Like if we open this again, it looks a bit like I'm betting like pocket kings or something, pocket aces, pocket kings, and he could feel inclined to bluff raise me there if he's that type of player. Yeah, that's everything that's to be said there, I think. Are we gonna 3-bet? Very strong hand. In terms of sizing, I would always lean towards a bigger size, because people under 4-bet, which means the EV of using a big size goes up. Okay. Again, this is this might be a call actually, as weird as it looks. I'm just not sure about the rake. Against, like, sizing matters a lot here. Like, once people use these smaller sizes, we have to call so much wider. And I'm thinking these low connected type of hands are probably the first additional calls against, like the first very wide calls against UTG, because they're at least not dominated. Yeah. Three betting to 9 big blinds here. Yeah, this size makes a lot of sense. Again, gonna keep it easy, especially because, like, for my personal preference, this time bank is way too short. So if I would wanna play my hand more, be a bit more exploitative, I would kind of need more time, especially if I have to explain in the meanwhile. Gonna open wider here. So yeah, because we could probably start with a check also, but let's keep things easy. And that's also what I would recommend for most people watching this. And this is very tight, like one of the most tight dynamics possible. I think that his bluffing part of his range is very unintuitive here. So I'm gonna overfold pretty heavily. I'm even having club, which is not good. So I'm very, very, very happy with this fold. Like, if we think about his bluffing range here, it will be flush draws, which we block, and everything else has to be very creative. Like, he has to be very creative to find those bluffs. And I'm gonna start with the assumption that that's not gonna happen at NL50 Russian cash on average. There will be for sure some very good players here as well, but on average. Yeah, here we just call. His range, again, very strong from UTG. If if we would check raise here, it would already get kind of tough to get called from behind. So our hand is too good, I think, to check. So the question is, we have two options. We either go 75 or we go 1/3 and kind of with the mindset to be in happy bluff catch land. We could do that. We have a supreme bluff catcher. And given he doesn't have so many weaker ace-x from UTG, means that with 75 maybe it's an additional incentive to size down a bit. Okay. Again, terrible texture for our range. And now, like, this is a bit different than the other spot because now Queen Jack is higher up in our range. And we want to bet really low frequency. And this hand kinda now really doesn't like getting check raised, so I'm gonna check it back this time. And now it's interesting. Depends a lot on the size he's using or if he's checking or what's going on. Big bet, usually pretty strong, and he has a lot of strong hands here. So I'm not gonna mess with that and I'm just gonna call. And now we have an easy fold unless he checks, then we have a decision. Here we can value bet what size. Gonna use 75 here. Don't expect to get bluff raised ever. Now use a small size. I'm still not gonna mess with this line. I don't think I wanna bluff him here. This hand is close. Mostly a call in GTO land, I think, especially being deeper. I'm a bit afraid ranges will be very strong here, but small blinds still. Maybe people find the decent frequencies. I'm not gonna mess too much with it with bluff 4 betting, which could be a thing with this hand, but again, gonna give people in tight range spots a lot of credit here. This guy, not sure this is a recreational or not. Gonna start kind of default with a small bet. Gonna start bluffing here. Wanna fold out better ace high hands that he has. Gonna check this turn. We have showdown value, definitely BBB with how wide ranges are. Here I'm gonna keep bluffing. And it's kind of interesting. I would prefer to have more time to think about it, but yeah, we work with what we got. He has a lot of pocket pair with a heart type of hands. Question is, would they tank so much? Not sure about it. Definitely being a bit over aggressive here, but can't be that bad, I think. God damn it. Let's do it. Very greedy. This is being very greedy, but probably fine. Yeah, 8-6 off is a fold for sure. Even against the very small size. By the way, I think these very small opening sizes are probably pretty good here in this format. I usually never play this, but I could see 2 big blinds or like 2.1 or something be pretty good. I think these suited and connected hands still have to call. This is a recreational, probably being half stack Probably, we don't know. Maybe he plays like a short stack strategy or something. Anyway, very dynamic texture. This hand can definitely check back and avoid trouble against the short stack. This guy donks, I guess. We call. His range from small blind calling range hits this a lot, so have to be careful. Now I'm gonna check here. Gonna call the half pot bet here. Still beat value. Very hard to get paid here. I think I'm gonna size small. And here we can value bet river for sure. Against the maybe recreational. Yeah. I was a bit in autopilot here, to be honest. I could have maybe gone a bit bigger against the recreational on the river. I guess I wasn't sure if he is a recreational or not. Again, I'm gonna open super, but this is maybe too high tech. It's maybe fine. Maybe fine. Maybe fine. Same here. Gonna be very loosey-goosey. Yeah. C-betting small here, totally fine. Against in-position cold callers, they have a very like condensed, I guess you could say, range. So we have to be pretty careful, check high frequency on the flop, and this card is very good for our range. We're gonna start a delay bluffing line, and I think this size fits our range very well. And we're definitely also gonna bluff river. We even have a decent blocker. I think he's pretty capped at this point. So I like overbetting here and seeing what happens. Oh, snap call, that's unfortunate. Okay, this hand will never fold. But I think after the small turn delay c-bet, he has a lot of pocket pairs. He has some weaker queen x who might consider folding. Although after seeing his snap call, they might not. But a snap call makes sense from his perspective. He beats value. Like he can, yeah, I guess he can beat value, or like at least split with value. So he should never fold that hand. I'm gonna call the 3-bet here. Very dicey board, snap check. This is, I would say, giving away a lot of info. I don't think there comes a lot of EV from him bluffing in delay lines or something, so I'm gonna start value betting. He snap calls again. I think we always have the best hand here. I'm gonna go pretty strong on that read, to be honest, because I don't think ace queen just snap calls us here, like snap checks flop, snap calls turn. Although if he check raises here now, I'm hating life. This is a kind of small size from big blind, smallish. So this hand is always gonna defend in some fashion. I'm gonna call it. Gonna avoid 4-bet bluffing against, again, a range that is probably very strong from the big blind. And here we're in another spot where, if my assumption is right and people play pretty straightforward, I don't think they check ace king here, so I'm gonna assume we have the best hand and we're just gonna go for it and try to get his whole stack. Okay. Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah. This is also interesting. I don't really like 3-betting here because if he shoves, we ruin our hand. Okay, this guy was the original racer. He c-bets into two players. I'm gonna assume he's pretty strong, and I'm gonna definitely fast play. Unfortunately, he folds. And slowly but surely I think we can wrap this video up. Gonna hit the sit out button. Yeah, and I would say let's make this our last hand. So multi-way checks again. I think we start bluffing here for sure. This size makes a lot of sense. I think we're representing a decent ace now. And okay, this is interesting. Wouldn't expect this to happen much, so props to him for being creative. And we have an easy fold. He should be very strong here. We don't have much equity, and that's it. I hope the gameplay was fun to watch. I hope you guys learned something, and see you next time. Bye bye.